Hey everyone, today I wanted to do some analysis on a character from Hunter x Hunter who I think might be a bit underappreciated. Now, I'm aware that this character is a fan favorite and I think lots of people do truly love her presence in the series, but I don't think everyone fully appreciates how essential she is to Hunter x Hunter, especially to its ending. Today, I'll be talking about Alluka Zoldyck, one of my absolute favorite characters in Hunter x Hunter, and why I believe she completes the anime both in terms of the plot and thematically. Notice how I said anime specifically. I won't really be talking about the manga after the anime in this video since I don't think it's necessary for discussing Alluka's character, and also she's only in one arc in the entire series and that arc's animated. While Alluka's presence is extremely important in both the manga and the anime, I feel that she was more necessary to provide closure at the anime's ending point. It seems like Togashi was really trying to wrap things up at that point in the manga, at least for the characters of Gon and Killua. I'll get into that as I discuss her character in more detail, but for now I'll just say that she ties up a lot of loose ends, and that leaves us with as good of an ending as we could possibly get for an anime with incomplete source material. With all that being said, let's talk about why Alluka completes Hunter x Hunter. But before we start the video, I have a pop quiz for you all. In this famous moment from Hunter x Hunter, what was Alluka fawning over? Of course, the correct answer is the like and subscribe buttons, and who wouldn't have the same reaction? If you want to be just as happy as Alluka is, then I'd strongly recommend hitting both of those buttons right now. In all seriousness though, thank you so much for almost 1,000 subscribers. My goal for last month was just 50 subs, so I really can't overstate how grateful I am to all of you. Alright, let's get into the video already.
ごめんな、アルカ。こんなとこにずっとほっといて。ごめんな。
So my last character analysis was a video on Kuro Lucifer, and while I still think that's a good video, what I forgot to include before the analysis was an actual description of who Kuro is. So for this video, let's rectify that mistake. Who is Alluka Zoldyck? Alluka is the second youngest child of the infamous Zoldyck family. While the Zoldicks are generally known as assassins who are also extremely proficient Nen users, Alluka is a bit of an exception. The Zoldicks isolated Alluka from the rest of the world since she was a young child due to her inexplicable powers. She was somehow possessed by a creature dubbed Nanika, meaning something in English, who has the ability to grant seemingly any wish. These wishes can cause quite dire consequences depending on their difficulty though, so Alluka has generally been kept away from others in order to mitigate these risks. Now, I have no idea if this wish granting power is Nen based at all, but because Nanika originated from the Dark Continent, I'm willing to guess that it could be another type of power entirely. Aside from Nanika and her strange powers, the most intriguing and controversial aspect of Alluka's character is actually her gender. Judging from her clothes and general appearance, and also the fact that Killua always refers to her as his sister, most people would assume that Alluka is female. However, the rest of her family seems to refer to her as brother or him, although sometimes the use of third-person pronouns in Japanese is a bit more vague than in English, so the disparity of how Killua refers to Alluka versus how their family refers to her is more pronounced in English translations. Personally, I'm of the belief that Alluka is a trans girl, and because she seems to want to be referred to as female, that's exactly how I'm going to address her throughout this video. If you want more info on Alluka's gender, I'd recommend watching this video. I'll link it in the top corner. It's from one of my favorite channels on YouTube, and it features a much more in-depth discussion on that particular aspect of Alluka's character than I'm going to give in this video. So while I do really appreciate Alluka's character design and the intricacies of her gender identity, I guess, along with the sort of dual personality and abilities she has due to Nanika's presence, I don't think these things alone make her an intriguing character. Obviously, character design is super important, but characters truly shine once we actually get to witness their development and growth as people over time, and also when we get to see how they interact with and impact the larger world around them. I think pretty much any character can be great in a vacuum, provided they have an intriguing design or backstory, but characters only become truly amazing once we see how the author implements them into the plot. Of course, we get to witness these things from a huge amount of characters in Hunter x Hunter because Togashi is a genius and Alluka is no exception. Otherwise, I wouldn't be making this video. Before I talk about how Alluka completes Hunter x Hunter as a story, let's talk about the depth that she brings to Hunter x Hunter's world and the characters that she interacts with. In a very broad sense, I feel like she really helps lead the series down a darker path and helps to set a more serious tone in preparation for what's to come. Okay, maybe that sounds slightly ridiculous if you take into account all of the cute or hilarious moments she has during her short tenure in the series, but I'm being completely serious. Hunter x Hunter is one of those shonen series that progressively gets much darker in tone as the story goes on. I'd say the first 6 parts of JoJo's Bizarre Adventure are another example of that happening. not counting the other two parts because they're actually seinen. The difference in tone between the Hunter exam and the Succession War, for example, is astronomical, and there's so many little bridges within the story that lead us toward this gradual shift in tone. Alluka's introduction comes right after the Chimera Ant arc, and in some ways she manages to be even more terrifying than the ants. I'm not talking about her general demeanor, of course. I'm referring to the fact that she possesses powers that defy all logic and rules that we've encountered so far in Hunter x Hunter. Like I said before, I'm not even sure if these powers are related to Nen whatsoever, and even by chapter 390 we still have no further explanation on their origins or true nature. I feel like the introduction of Nanika was actually Hunter x Hunter's first foray into the genre of horror, and this is absolutely perfect setup for the bleak and constantly tense Succession War arc. Honestly, reading through the manga chapter in which Nanika's powers are explained with examples feels like reading through a Junji Ito story. The way that every rule is explained with a different example, the butlers are sacrificed just so that the Zoldicks can experiment with Nanika, really seems to emulate a story like Smashed or maybe even Uzumaki. Practically, and a bit more specifically, Alluka just leads us into the concept of the Dark Continent quite well. Of course, we learn that her powers somehow originated from the Dark Continent, and this creates a brand new mystery that causes her story arc to be a good segue into the Dark Continent expedition and the Succession War. While a shift in tone and the introduction of an important concept like the Dark Continent are both incredibly important to the story and world of Hunter x Hunter, I don't want to simply focus on the practical purposes that Alluka serves in the narrative. Sure, I think that she drives the plot forward, but I believe that what a character brings thematically to a work of fiction is much more indicative of who they truly are. I feel like Alluka's character and story arc are just all about acceptance. What does accepting someone for who they truly are actually entail? What is unconditional love? And what does loving and accepting a member of your family actually look like? Alluka's story is really a sad one at first, as we see time and time again how her family never truly accepts or respects her as a person. Her parents tend to view her as a dangerous possession that needs to be kept under lock and key, which is exactly why she's been locked up in the Zoldyck estate for so long. Illumi views her as a means to gain more power. Miliki just wants to use her to wish for gaming systems or computers. I don't fucking know, dumb fuck. I'm like 95% sure that Kalatoten never mentions Alluka in any capacity. Even Killua ends up leaving Alluka to her isolation for an extended period of time, and although he does have the sneaking suspicion that Illumi's needle was the reason for this, he's still ashamed of himself for not prioritizing Alluka and leaving her there. While we know the Zoldicks aren't exactly the most selfless and loving family in the whole world, their treatment of Alluka is demonstrably worse than their treatment of anybody else in the family. Although, I guess Killua did get whipped that one time, so like that wasn't great. Oh, and he was electrocuted and poisoned. You know what? Maybe they just don't like their kids that much. Even people outside of the Zoldyck family tend to treat Alluka like a mere object. Goto refers to her as valuables at one point, and while observing Killua and Illumi's confrontation, Hisoka only really thinks of how he could use Alluka and her potential death to fulfill his selfish desires. Hisoka sees everyone like that though, so maybe that's just indicative of the type of person he is. Alluka's gender is an additional factor in this lack of acceptance from others. Killua is really the only Zoldyck who respects that she identifies as female, and he's seen correcting others on the matter. Even if her family didn't view her as an object, it's hard for me to believe that you can truly accept someone without accepting their identity and what they wish to be referred to as, and I have the sneaking suspicion that Alluka would feel the same way. Unfortunately, this is a parallel to the real world, and it shows how trans people can really be ostracized by their own families, the people who should be there for them most. Fortunately though, we do get to see a happy ending to Alluka's story. While there are so many people who demonize Alluka and either want nothing to do with her or simply want to use her for their own ends, Killua is someone who truly loves and accepts her as a person. At one point during Illumi's pursuit of the two, Alluka asks Killua if things would be better if she didn't exist. This shows how hurt Alluka actually is by the events around her and the way people view her, but she seems to recover from this doubt instantly due to Killua's reassurance. I feel like we could all inherit a little bit of Alluka's philosophy. Yeah, it sucks that not everyone in the world is going to like us, and it sucks that the people who we want to love us sometimes don't feel that way. But it's really not necessary for everyone to love you. At the end of the day, having even one person who truly loves you for who you are is more than enough to be happy, and I think Alluka realizes this and truly appreciates Killua's presence. And isn't it funny how Killua, the one who truly accepts Alluka, is the only one capable of accessing her powers without consequence, while the people who would love to use Alluka for their own means aren't able to abuse her powers at all. This bond doesn't mean that Killua and Alluka's relationship is perfect though, but once again, this is just a reflection of the real world. While Killua is much more accepting of both Alluka Alluka's gender and Nanika than the rest of the family, he still doesn't fully accept Nanika as an unchangeable aspect of Alluka. Killua believes that he's doing a good thing by telling Nanika to never come out again after she heals Gon, but Alluka reprimands him and demands that he accepts Nanika as well. This is what true unconditional love and acceptance is. Alluka can't change the fact that Nanika exists within her, nor does she want to. So Killua must accept Nanika if he truly loves Alluka. Love isn't just accepting what's convenient about others and simply ignoring everything else. It's so much more than that, and this beautiful exchange between these two is a perfect example. This has to be one of the most heartwarming moments in the whole series. I'm pretty sure I cry every time I watch it, and it's just an amazing way to wrap up Alluka's character arc and the main theme that she introduced to the story. Just absolutely incredible writing from Togashi. Just a tiny thing before we move on from this section, something that I love about how Hunter x Hunter works thematically is that so many characters and their abilities are direct parallels of Nen and its restrictions. I talked about that idea at length in my Kuro analysis, and I think the same idea applies with Alluka. Again, I don't really think Alluka's abilities are Nen based, but the way that her demands become greater and greater, increasing proportionally with how demanding the previous wish was, is a direct parallel to how Nen's power increases based on limitations or other special circumstances, such as literally dying. Nanika being unable to heal things without touching them is also a parallel to Nen limitations, which is a nice little detail I found.
な、この先お兄ちゃんはずーっと一緒だ。
And now we've gotten to the crux of this video. How does Alluka complete Hunter x Hunter? Just like when I was discussing what she brings to Hunter x Hunter, there are both thematic and practical answers to this question. Let's start with the practical, since I think it's probably the most obvious answer of the two. Of course, Alluka is the entire reason that Gon is able to be healed and complete his story arc after his complete mental and physical breakdown during his fight with Pido, and this is most likely the main reason that Togashi introduced her to this story. Obviously, Togashi is amazing at crafting multi-dimensional characters with amazing arcs of personal growth, but at the end of the day, characters need to serve a purpose within the plot. Alluka is why we're actually able to see Gon achieve his goal of meeting his father, and without her, we're basically left with nothing. We'd have the absolute most depressing ending we could possibly get to what was otherwise an incredibly beautiful and compelling plot so far. It's kind of crazy how a character who's around for less than 10 episodes in total is able to alter the plot so dramatically, and even though they're completely different characters with different roles, this is another aspect of Alluka that actually reminds me of my analysis of Kuro. I really don't think a character's amount of screen time is as meaningful or integral as we might believe that it is, and Alluka is just another example of a character who means so much to Hunter x Hunter while still only existing on screen for a relatively short amount of time. So healing Gon is a pretty easy way to show that Alluka completes Hunter x Hunter, and obviously her impact on the plot and Gon's life is super important, but that's so obvious that there's not really any analysis needed on my part there. What's probably just as obvious but has even more meaning to the story as a whole is how Alluka truly completes Killua's character arc. Killua was already a great character long before Alluka's introduction to the series. He has a cool design, unique personality, intriguing backstory, and a great bond with Gon. Oh, also uses fucking lightning. That's so cool. Anyways, while Killua has tons of moments of great character development, there was always one thing missing from his character when compared to Gon. Killua was missing a true purpose and goal of his own. For most of the series, Killua was essentially following Gon and just supporting him in his goal of finding Jing. Now that's completely fine. I think Killua had a good reason for doing so, and part of his reason for following Gon around was to find a goal and purpose for himself. With Gon being out of commission during the 13th chairman election, and with Illumi's needle being removed previously, Killua experiences true independence, possibly for the first time ever, right after the Chimera Ant arc's conclusion. This is the perfect time for him to gain his own purpose in life, and Alluka is the person that gives him that. Killua learns how important Alluka truly is to him, and after finally accepting Nanika as an unalterable part of Alluka's being, he even decides to travel solely with Alluka instead of staying with Gon. Of course, Gon is still incredibly important to Killua as a friend, but Alluka is the reason that one of Hunter x Hunter's main characters is able to have a true overarching purpose in life. life. I think it's interesting how the end of both Gon and Killua's character arcs are so interwoven, and Alluka is really the glue that brings these two parallels together. Alluka is the main reason why Gon is actually able to achieve his goal of meeting Jing, and interestingly enough, Gon would have never achieved this goal without the existence of the person who gave Killua a true purpose in life. Killua needed to have an actual goal before Gon could finally achieve his own, and Alluka is the person who truly completes both of their character arcs, at the exact same time in fact. I also really love how the most important scene for Alluka's character arc, her demanding that Killua accept both herself and Nanika, runs pretty much parallel with Jing finally accepting and acknowledging Gon as his son. I think Alluka and Gon are both examples of people who can love and care for another person without lingering on that person's past mistakes, and the interactions between both Killua and Alluka and later Jing and Gon, they're just so meaningful to watch with this in mind. I really just love Alluka's character. She's not in the story for a whole lot of time, but I think the impact she makes during her short stint is absolutely impossible to ignore. She brings new ideas to the world of Hunter x Hunter, but at the same time she closes off what are arguably the two most important character arcs in the story. I genuinely believe Alluka is the character that completes Hunter x Hunter, both thematically and practically, and I could not imagine a satisfactory conclusion for the anime that doesn't involve her. I love the anime's ending so much, and that makes me appreciate Alluka's character so much more than I otherwise would.
何かこんなダメなお兄ちゃんでも許してくれるか。Thanks so much for watching this video. I really love doing these character analyses, and I have so many more planned for the future. Please let me know what you thought in the comments, maybe leave a suggestion for a future video, and I'll see you all next time. See ya.